Good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Anderson, and I am the Manager of Alumni Relations here at Johnson & Wales University. Thank you for joining us for Refine Your Finances. We are thrilled to bring this program to you featuring alumni in the finance industry to give insight on personal finance strategies, types of retirement accounts, and ways to set yourself up for financial success now and in the future. We are grateful they have taken time to be with us and share their experience and expertise and to answer your questions. As a reminder, this is a general information session, and you should consult your tax preparer and/or financial planner for advice on your specific circumstances. Questions can be submitted throughout the session through the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. These questions will be posed to our panelists at the conclusion of the presentation. I will be the moderator for this session and would like to introduce our first panelist, Audrey Grimble. Audrey is a 2012 graduate of JWU Charlotte, earning her degree in culinary arts and food service management. She lives and works in the Aiken, South Carolina area and is married to her best friend and fellow JWU alum, Tag. She has been in the financial industry for over 10 years, has been a board member of 3 nonprofits, the VP of a networking organization, and worked in North Carolina and South Carolina to lead and support local communities to overcome financial hardships and hunger. She is passionate about collaborating and teaching financial literacy in middle and high schools to help our future leaders understand the foundations of money management. In her free time, Audrey loves working on their small orchard, playing golf, and riding horses. She loves working in partnership within her community to create more opportunities and developing ways to support each other for the greater good. Please join me in welcoming Audrey to lead us off.
Good evening. I am delighted to be here with you. Today I will cover more about budgeting. We're going to go over basically just the tip of the iceberg and break down a few of the ways for this to work for you. I will also be sharing top 5 ways to make it work for you. So how I do that is it's through the day-to-day. We're going to go over how, why, and when. So it's step-by-step and really creating an individual plan for you, and how that looks for you is always going to be different. This is also why I highly encourage you to work with a professional and work with someone that is devoted to you and your plan. When, this is one of the most important parts, is always focus on today, tomorrow. Find a 1-month plan, a 6-month plan, a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, and even a 25-year plan. Also, this is extremely important to focus on your why you need a personal plan, what it is that you want to achieve. This is going to get very personal. I love doing a lot of research and work in order to find the data that proves all about how emotional this can be for many people. This brings about quite a bit of why relationships end and begin. And so I recognize fully that this is not always going to be an easy conversation, but recognizing your why and why it works for you is always going to make the difference. So next, something that I would love to share with you, I always use resources from many other people, and I don't plan on telling you that I know everything. I get a lot of different information from all kinds of books and different things online. So one of the TED Talks that I really like is by Jason Vidug, V-I-T-U-G, and it's specifically called Break Social Taboo About Money and Improve Financial Wellness. I enjoy sharing this information and all the different financial psychology because it goes over the mindsets and the behaviors is why you really are able to make your changes and what you can do to improve your finances. So first and foremost, you want to start with a SMART goal. That is going to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. That is what is going to make it work for you, and that's what's going to really set it apart from anyone else's. Also, hence why all of this stuff is general information, because it's got to work for you. So what you need to do in order to create a budget is determine your net income. So that is the amount that gets deposited into your checking account or the amount that you bring home. You need to track your spending. Many times you can do this on an app. You can do this through your bank, or you can do this very simply through an Excel spreadsheet, or all kinds of different ways through Google if you search. The other part is to create that specific plan in a timeline. Like I said earlier, a month, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, and 25 years. So my favorite thing about financial planning and financial understanding and money management strategies is the 50-30-20. You will hear me probably say this quite a bit. I say it many, many times in my workday. I believe this to be the wheel of money management strategies, 50-30-20. I also like to use this as a JRU graduate in a hamburger meat analogy. So many of you may prefer 80-20 or 70-30. We are a 70-30 household. That is because I believe that fat equals flavor. Fat also protects your meat. It makes it do wonderful and make wonderful different flavors. But the most important thing is having a little bit of protection. So going over that 50, 30, and 20, what do each of those mean? So the 50 is going to cover your needs. It's going to cover your mortgage, your car payment, your groceries, your health care, the things that you absolutely have that are essential. Many times those are fixed or they can be month to month. Breaking those down and understanding what the minimum debt payments are, such as your car payment, is going to help you to be able to better understand that debt strategy later on. 30 is going to be for your wants. These are things like your gym membership, eating out, shopping, traveling, different things that you want to do, but also that are a part of your enjoyment and that help you feel good about kind of spending your money. This is where the fun is. 20 is going to be for your savings. So to me, this is where it differs whether you have a 30 split or a 20 split in different areas. I highly encourage every single person to have 10% of either your 30 or 20 to be in an emergency fund. That is going to be 3 to 6 months of your current spending. Hence why when you start out that plan, you need to know not only your net income, but you need to know your spending and just in general how much you are spending. That saving strategy is going to also cover any kind of loans, such as student loans, debt. Another part of that should be broken into 2 separate portions, whereas 10% of that 20% should be going towards your retirement in order to afford the income that you are currently having. And then debt, this is where I want to highly encourage people to be very careful, is that 10% of the 20% savings, this is where you should be able to cover that debt in a comfortable way. If your debt is a little bit higher than that, that's kind of where it dips back into the 30% of your wants. I also use this 50-30-20 strategy when talking about any kind of 401k portfolio. If you are looking at a portfolio, I highly encourage you to work with a financial planner. They are going to be able to help you organize your personal finances in your portfolio to meet and kind of really go along with all of your goals that you're already aligned with. However, if you get into a situation and you have to make that choice, this is the way that I use it. 50% should cover the basic investments, what you are really trying to achieve, and have some steady mutual funds that help you achieve that growth and income in equal parts. The 30% should cover what you want to do with that retirement funds. If your goal and your timeline is a little bit shorter, then this is where you would want it to be a little closer to the fixed income side. Whereas if you have a longer timeline and you have a little bit more of a risk-taking goal, per se, this is where you would go more into the growth section. 20%, this is also where I talk about the fat portion of your hamburger, is going to go into growth, cash, and money markets. That is where I've heard many people say that you'll never get rich by bonds, but you won't go broke. So like I said, going into the top 5 ways to help your budget is to create a plan, something that works best for you. Constantly work on this, constantly go back to it and see ways that help you and that really achieve exactly what you are wanting to do. Don't always keep to the same thing unless it's perfectly working for you. You will find in many times that you will end up using that emergency fund and it comes in handy and it helps you out. Next is to focus on what you can control. There are many things in this world, if this pandemic hasn't shown you that you cannot control. Recognize that what you have in that plan and ways that you can work for it to achieve your goals. The next is going to be thinking long-term and acting short-term. I really believe that the day-to-day things that you are doing, recognizing the extra cup of coffee or different little spending leaks that happen. I have a wonderful resource that I love sharing with people about those spending leaks, and it's the little things that actually tend to add up, and it can save you or it can also hurt you a little bit in the long run. Another thing is recognizing that the long term is where your goals and these plans really help you. It's going to make all the difference, and it's going to really help you achieve that long-term goal. The next thing is to diversify. Find different ways, find different income strategies, find different savings plans, find different apps, find different books, find different things that work for you, and continue learning and growing and basically just finding out more information about this. The very last is quality. Quality, I can't speak highly enough of. You get what you pay for. Always go for quality. Recognizing too that if you want a strategy to work for you and you want something that will help you in the long run, that quality is always the best way to go. So I will finish that up with a G.I. Joe quote of saying, "Now you know, and knowing is half the battle." Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to share this with you today.
Thank you, Audrey, for all your wonderful insights and personal finance strategies. I really enjoyed that analogy with hamburger as well. It really makes it a tangible process. So next, I would like to introduce Francis. Francis Semsem is a 2020 grad from JU Denver, earning his degree in business administration. He is a financial consultant with Equitable Advisors in Denver, Colorado. In this role, he serves his clients by taking the time to listen to their goals and creating efficiency in their strategies to produce high quality and professional results. His practice focuses on helping clients navigate the intricate planning around retirement, risk management, and portfolio design, all while maintaining tax efficiency. Francis works with business entities, individuals, and families, helping meet and exceed their financial goals. Francis is a first-generation Filipino-American and a Colorado resident since the early 90s. In his spare time, you'll find Francis either fishing in one of the many rivers in the state or practicing Hatha yoga at 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Welcome, Francis.
Hey, thanks, Lauren. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Really excited to participate and connect with my fellow Wildcats. Actually,
Francis, we're not able to see you. Sorry for interrupting. We're not able to see you visually.
Gotcha. Here, let me switch cameras here. How's that?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, great. And actually, won't need my camera. I'm gonna have a quick presentation for us here today. So. How's that look?
Great.
All right, perfect. So yeah, my name is Francis Semsem. First, unfortunately, I have to disclose that during this seminar, I'll be providing you with important information and education that's really more general in nature. So while while I may be asked to respond to some questions, none of the concepts that I discussed during this presentation should be construed to be individualized advice or a call to action. Every individual circumstance is different, and I'll gladly schedule a time afterwards, post meeting or post webinar, to discuss any specific concerns tailored to your situation. So today I'll be covering a couple different items that I hope that you'll find insightful. Especially how we view taxation from an investor standpoint. We'll go a little bit over a little bit about my firm and who we are, a quick background about myself, and lastly, what we feel is kind of a really valuable concept around the different tax environments that we simply refer to as 4 boxes. So a little bit about myself. As Lauren mentioned, I'm first generation Filipino American and Colorado resident. I earned my bachelor's of science in business studies here in Denver. And during my final year, I began taking regulatory certifications to become a financial advisor. And then upon graduation, I joined Equitable Advisors. One of the surprising bits of trivia about my firm, Equitable, is that we've been servicing our clients since 1859. So quick back of the napkin math, that equates to about 163 years of service. So what does that mean? Why is that important? Well, it means Equitable's, it predates a civil war. We've been servicing clients we did service our clients through the Great Depression, both world wars. Hopefully, we're not on the precipice of a third, through the dot-com crash, the 2008 financial crisis, the 2020 pandemic, and now most recently, an environment of the rising inflation, rising interest rates, and as I mentioned, kind of increased geopolitical turmoil. And, it's really times like these that our clients really lean heavily in our guidance. And as a fiduciary, I'm able to do just that. And my focus, my practice focuses mostly on helping clients navigate, as Lauren mentioned, planning around retirement, risk management, portfolio design, and also I love fishing and yoga. So let's transition to kind of the crux of my presentation, 4 boxes. So what is the 4 boxes concept? Before we answer that, we need to know that despite what you might have learned about investing, really kind of the greatest arbiter of long-term wealth, maybe the management of taxation. So as the saying goes, nothing is certain except for death and taxes. However, when, where, and how you're taxed can make a huge difference between realized and unrealized goals. The 4 boxes helps explain the concept of how taxation impacts various types of financial vehicles while you're saving and accumulating, and also when you start taking distributions. So this grid shown is a comparative hypothetical analysis that illustrates the effects of taxation during accumulation at the year you begin distributing earnings and at the year you take a lump sum distribution. So you'll notice the first of the 2 boxes share, or the first 2 boxes share a commonality. Funds or contributions are generally after-tax funds. The main difference is that box 1 is taxable during accumulation and generally non-taxable at distribution. So for this specific box, think bank accounts. So bank accounts are a really great example for this type of taxation. And then box 2, on the other hand, is generally non-taxable during accumulation and taxable at distribution. Common examples include annuities, or probably more relatable is real estate, really. So think about it. You buy a house and generally you purchase it with after-tax funds, and the equity can grow tax deferred, but you're taxed if you sell for a gain, right? So there are some caveats to this specific example, but this gives you kind of a baseline understanding of the concept. And boxes 3 and 4 are often the 2 that most people are familiar with, but you may not realize it, right? So box 3 is pre-tax contributions that grow tax deferred. So you're not taxed, and then as the funds are growing, you're not paying taxes at that time, but it is taxed at distribution. So the most relatable example here is probably the 401k, or in the case of some university employees, sometimes 403Bs or 457s, really kind of depending on the institution, but they all, for the most part, function in the same way. And these are really, really powerful tools of accumulation, often due to the employer match component of the accounts. The matching component is essentially 100% return instantly on your investment, which is harder to get anywhere else. So generally speaking, it's always a good idea to take advantage of those benefits. I currently manage several 401k plans for small business owners, and I always stress to the eligible employees to participate, And then box 4, on the other hand, are funds that are generally after-tax funds that are non-taxable at distribution. So the most well-known example here are your Roth accounts, educational accounts like 529 plans and Coverdell plans, that sort of thing. Investment vehicles in box 4 are unbelievable tools to grow capital as well, and you should use them when possible. Now, I say that on purpose because not everybody is eligible to use something like a Roth account. Usually there is a phase out for those. Let's say if you're married and filing jointly, it's $214,000 if you and your spouse combined, right? In terms of your AGI. So in that case, you wouldn't qualify for an IRA. Something to consider when you're trying to diversify your assets from a taxation standpoint. So this page represents, again, a generic basis of the type of financial instruments that would be taxed in a fashion similar to boxes 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the previous slides. The 4 boxes help explain the concept of how taxation impacts various types of financial instruments while you're saving and when you start distributing funds. Oftentimes, diversifying in investments is encouraged when building portfolios, right? So, like when you're trying to make sure you have the appropriate amount or number of stocks and bonds to mitigate risk within an account. Now, what we argue is that diversifying should also extend to the actual vehicles themselves that you use when building your own portfolio. So overloading on one type of investment vehicle can lead to less control over your financial plan during accumulation or distribution, really, at all points of your life. For example, imagine, let's say 90% of your assets at retirement are in box 3, which I see a lot. But let's say you're 67 and you're 2 years into your retirement, and you might be hovering at the higher end of the 22nd marginal tax bracket. And then you suddenly have an unexpected medical expense that isn't covered by your insurance, Medicare, Medicaid. Or maybe another example, you have a grandchild who's getting married and you want to help them with a down payment on a home. Or maybe you simply just want to go on a trip to Italy. So what do? Well, you do the only thing you can do. You withdraw, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, whatever it may be from your traditional IRA that you rolled over all your 401k assets into. Now, remember, these are all pre-tax funds and the IRS wants their cut. So in doing so, you trigger a taxable event and then you enter the 24th marginal tax bracket for that year, resulting in you paying taxes that potentially could have been avoided altogether had you diversified your assets more, right? In this example, potentially box 1 and 2, or I'm sorry, 1 and 4. Now, this is the type of planning and strategizing that we encourage for everyone to prepare for. And utilizing these 4 boxes efficiently, gives you an unmatched level of control, and diversifying amongst the different tax environments is absolutely key. I can't stress that enough. It's absolutely key. And as mentioned before, this presentation should not be construed to be individualized advice or a call to action. And, I hope it helps. I provides some insight in how we as investors think about taxes, again, strictly from an investor standpoint. If you have any questions or want to dig deeper, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to be a resource. So, and with that, I'll hand it back to Lauren. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Francis. That was a great breakdown of different types of accounts and all the different nuances for each one. So our final panelist is Richard Oring. He is a JWU Providence alum from the class of 1995, where he graduated with a BS in management. Upon graduation, he worked in the food service industry and was responsible for the marketing, purchasing, and financial arrangements for major product lines of a national food distributor listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Rich obtained his first securities registration in 1999 and joined the staff of a New Jersey-based CPA firm, preparing tax returns and handling a variety of tax and financially related assignments. He was selected to help develop that firm's financial planning practice for its 2 New Jersey and Pennsylvania offices, during which time he obtained his Series 7 and 65 registrations and insurance licenses. Rich utilizes his investment, insurance, and tax backgrounds to provide clients answers to planning for their retirement and the education of their children or grandchildren, personal budgeting, estate planning, business succession, and charitable objectives. He manages individual investment portfolios for clients of his firm. Concerning retirement plans, Rich has done feasibility studies, established and implemented 401k and other types of plans. Rich is active in community affairs, serving as the past president of the Kiwanis Club in Yardley, Pennsylvania, and for the club and on the board for Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Mercer County, New Jersey. He currently volunteers at Breakfast Club for Seniors and lives in Yardley, Pennsylvania with his wife, Rachel, who is also a JWU alum, and their 3 sons, Ethan, Miles, and Logan. Rich, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren. And thank you, Audrey and Francis, for the topics you discussed today. This is really exciting. I never thought I would graduate culinary school with a bachelor's in food service management and talking to my alumni about financial planning. It's pretty cool. I live outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I work in Princeton, New Jersey. So I live right on the border of the 2 states. Looking at different years in the directory when people register for this, I did graduate in 1995, which makes me one of the oldest people on this presentation. Hence, no hair and gray, the little I have. Like Lauren said, I did graduate with a culinary arts degree in food service management. What's really cool is my wife also graduated from Johnson & Wales in Providence, and she will tell you that it's a good thing that we did not meet in college because we would not be married and have our 3 beautiful children. It's also really exciting going through the process. My oldest son, I have 3 boys. My oldest son, Ethan, is in the process of looking at colleges, and he was excited to apply for the Charleston Johnson Wales campus, which he got accepted. He hasn't made a decision yet, but I was really happy, and my wife was really happy to see that he actually took an interest and did some research on the college. Made us feel really proud of where we graduated from. So my background, as you know, I graduated culinary school, so I worked in the restaurant business. After graduating college, I did store openings for Boston markets. At that time, they were exploding everywhere. But I had another job lined up. I was just waiting for the position to open up on a small cruise line of about 250 passengers. They had 2 vessels, which I worked on both. And that was a great experience. I got to travel around the world. Wouldn't trade that for anything. And then from there, I worked in a Grand Collection Hotel as the executive sous chef in Princeton. And then when I started getting a little bit older, I realized like all my friends were having weekends off and holidays. I kind of like, wow, maybe I should change careers. And I decided to work for Cisco Foods. I was a merchandiser, I did purchasing deals for the commodities, the poultry lines and things like that, and negotiated marketing deals with them. From there, I realized I was good at talking to people and selling. So I went to an accounting firm, which my father was one of the partners at, and I asked them, would they consider hiring me as an investment advisor for their firm? We had 3 locations, and I was very fortunate that they accepted me there, and I got to work with their clients. And probably the most important learning thing I had working for an accounting firm is during tax season, when everyone's working till 2 a.m, 7 days a week, the investment guy can't leave at 5:30 and say, have a good night. So took a lot of tax courses, learned how to schlock out the 1040s, got those done. And it's amazing because investments, financial planning, and taxes all go hand in hand. You can't do one without understanding the other. So that was a great experience. A few years later, they gave me an opportunity for partnership, and they were expanding with SEC audit work, and investments and SEC audit work don't go hand in hand. So I decided that time I was going to start my own firm. I bought my own clients back from that firm, and I started a firm in Princeton, New Jersey, which I've grown. Not only have I grown my own client base, I have about 30 other financial advisors who I supervise. I also work in our broker-dealers mentoring program for females. So I'm a mentor for 3 females in the industry, which I'm very proud of. So what I want to talk about might step on a little bit what Audrey and Francis talked about, but I promise I won't go into great detail. I just might be talking a little bit about some of the same things. But I want to talk about what financial planning is and why you might need it. I always say financial planning is for everybody. You know, in the past, everyone thought, oh, I don't need a financial planner because I don't have a lot of money. Or, hey, maybe financial planning costs too much. I'm in debt. How am I going to afford that? Trust me, financial planning is for everyone, and it's affordable. You know, I never turn someone away just because they can't afford it. One of my joys in life, you know, I always say I have one of the best jobs. I get to know about everyone's households, their joys, their sadnesses. You know, I'm there for the celebrations. I've been a pallbearer for clients. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, there's only 2 jobs I could think of who get to know everything about a household: financial advisor and a religious leader, if you open up to them. So every day I come in, I'm talking to new people. It's a different story, different children, different stresses, different celebrations. So I'm really fortunate that I found this career path, and I love it. I love waking up and go to work every day. So, you know, people go to the banks, they go to investment advisors, and Audrey said it great. I was really happy she said it. She said, this is what I do, but maybe you should go see a financial advisor. And a lot of people don't realize what the difference is. The difference between an investment advisor and a financial planner or a financial advisor, go by different terms. So an investment advisor is usually somebody who handles investments. They can do it through commissions. They can do it through an advisory. It could be mutual funds. It could be stocks. It could be annuities. It could be multiple different products. You know, Francis had those boxes up. So a lot of those boxes can fall into an investment, what an investment advisor sells, sets up the 401k plans and things like that. Then financial planning is really more about documenting a financial plan. It could be a very simple one, what we call goal-based planning. That's kind of like a financial plan when you go to the bank, or a very comprehensive advanced plan, what we call cash flow planning. So when we do financial planning, there's many, many different topics we talk about. And Audrey mentioned it pretty early in our presentation and talked about goals. So, you know, that little elephant, you know, you always talked about that little elevator pitch, what you're supposed to describe what you do. By the way, I asked my wife out in an elevator, so I got that down packed. 3 floors, and we're married on that elevator ride. So I always say my job is to ask the questions which you're too busy to ask yourself between you and your spouse, because you're too busy going to work, going home, taking your kids to soccer, going to music lessons, karate lessons. And then by the time you get home, you're exhausted and you're turning on Netflix. But you should be asking those questions. You should be sitting down and going to your spouse and saying, hey, you know what? Are we saving enough? Do we have enough money budgeted for summer camp this year? Are we going to have enough money for retirement? Where do we want to live in retirement? Do we want to live in the Northeast with this big northeastern storm coming? Or do we want to live in sunny Florida and deal with hurricanes? I mean, these are questions you should be asking yourself, and you should be documenting those goals. And that's what a financial planner helps you do. We ask those questions, we document it, and we make you accountable, making sure that we can meet those goals by having meetings throughout the year. So different things we talk about in the financial planning things. I'm not going to go through every single thing in great detail. I'll cover some topics. We talk about insurance. As you get married and you start building things like a household, children, things like that, God forbid there's a loss, you need to make sure that you know what the risks are. You don't want to go poor paying for insurance premiums, but you need to know what the risks are and calculate that risk. And for the risk you need to cover, you need to cover it with insurance. And that's what we help. We help you figure out if it's term, permanent insurance, and things like that. And sometimes what we do is we give a second opinion. I like doing the financial plan and saying to the client, if you have an insurance agent, here's my recommendations, go to them. You're paying me for independent advice, and I don't want to be presenting insurance and a product at the same time to make a commission. There's a little conflict there. I mean, I can do it, but I rather you work with the person you have that relationship with. So I help clients with their life insurance, disability insurance, health, home and auto, making sure like if you have an umbrella policy that it's stacked properly so you don't have a gap, which is very common we see sometimes when you buy your homeowners, your car, and maybe your umbrella with different insurance companies. We make sure that they're stacked properly. We make sure that as you accumulate wealth, that you're protecting it, especially for your spouse if you become ill or need long-term care. God forbid you have to go to a nursing home. You should know what that risk is for your retirement plan and what could happen if something happens. So we talk about that. We'll go more back to a positive thing than getting sick or needing insurance. Let's talk about college savings or private school. We help clients create a budget. You may not be able to save 100% of what you need for college, but saving something is better than nothing. Like I told you, my son, he's going to be 18 soon, and we're looking at colleges, and it's amazing because it feels like yesterday when my wife and I were nudging each other who's going to do the midnight feeding, who's going to wake up, and now he's off to college, and it's exciting. But thank God, even before I got in this business, another financial advisor told me, open a 529 plan, even if it's a few dollars a month, it's going to accumulate over the years, and it really has, and it's going to make it a lot more affordable for me to put my son through and my other two. I'm going to have 2 kids at one time going through college, and that's a pretty big expense. But a lot of people live in states like Florida, where it has a great prepaid state program where you can prepay credits at today's values, and it's unbelievable. I'm jealous that I don't live in Florida and able to take advantage of that program. But again, like I said, you may not be able to pay 100%. Maybe your kids are going to pay for some of it through financing. We go over the different federal loans, the private loans. We talk about scholarships and grants. We talk about how you can get money out of 529 plans tax-free with scholarships or for the tuition. There's a lot of planning for the education and how to stack it and roll it over to the next child and things like that. This is interesting because I never had to do this till probably about 4 years ago. Debt planning has really become popular. I think the younger generation coming out of college is a lot more comfortable with debt. So there's usually 2 strategies you can use in debt. You look at your credit cards, your liabilities, you look at the interest and minimum payments, and we try to figure out, all right, is the goal to free up monthly cash flow by paying off the debt sooner? Or is the goal to pay the least amount of interest as possible? And there are strategies and documented, and it's amazing. Every time I sit down with someone and they're like, oh my God, Rich, I'm in so much debt, credit card, I needed a new roof, had to charge it. Then I needed this and that. And before I knew it, I got $40,000 in debt, spread out a few credit cards. I got my car loan and all this kind of stuff. And I don't have enough money to put into my 401k. I go, well, you know what? When you actually document that debt and you come up with a plan, those nerves of stress, like that stress you're building up, think I'm never going to get out of it. It's amazing when you present a payment plan and how you can stack the payments and get it paid off sooner. And they're like, wow, I could be out of debt in 18 months or 2 years. I look at the credit cards, it says 14 years, and this is how much interest I'm going to pay. Wow, I feel a lot better. And I always say that when things are documented, you're more likely to meet those goals than just to verbally say it. So debt planning has become really, really popular lately. Investment planning, Francis talked about the buckets. There's different types of accounts he mentioned. He mentioned the Roth IRA that you might have an income phase out and you may not be able to contribute. But, I live right outside New York. We have people in their early 30s making a couple $100,000 a year who are going to get phased out. But wouldn't it be great if they were able to put some money into a Roth? So the Roth 401k doesn't have income limitations. So they can spread out their contributions between Roth, traditional. The employer contribution is always like 99% time going to be traditional because they want the tax deduction. With a Roth, they don't get it. So there are other vehicles you can sometimes, think out of the box and find, working with someone. It's amazing when I bring on a new client, I go, does your company have a Roth 401k? They're like, what is that? And I explained, like, oh, I make too much. I go, no, you don't. That's the Roth IRA. Totally different. We talk about, not putting, maybe you don't want to put all your money in a 401k. You might need liquidity. You might need to buy a house. You want to have a shorter term goals for that money. Or, we're really in low income tax brackets right now. Our marginal tax brackets are historically low right now. So maybe it makes sense to put some money in a taxable account, knowing that in the long run, that taxable account will probably have a better tax advantage than an IRA or 401k, because when you take that out, that's not long-term gains. That's 100% ordinary income, which affects a whole bunch of other things on your tax return. So, we talk about risk, and I always say picking investments is not the hardest thing to do. It's managing clients' expectations. We have Russia attacking Ukraine on the borders. We got rising interest rates, coming up in March. There's a lot of volatility in the market, but that volatility has always been there. I mean, since 2008, we've had Brexit, we've had Greece in debt, we've had North Korea, we had Venezuela crisis. It's always about something. That's the great thing about the internet and the news. What might not be a big thing back then or take a couple of days for it to flow through like it used to do with news, now you get it within a couple of minutes of it happening. So our job is to manage expectations and holding the client's hand and explaining, hey, look, let's ride this out. We built the portfolio. We knew what the downside was. This money's not going to be touched for 20 more years. And when it does get touched, it's going to be taken out over your lifetime, another 30. We can ride that market cycle, but maybe it's a different account. Maybe it's that house account. We probably don't want to be in the stock market, or maybe not in a certain asset class currently. Maybe we don't want to be in certain bonds because interest rates go up, bond prices go down, you're going to lose money. So we got to look at, durations of risk and bonds. We got to look at your asset classes, and it's based on the time. Time reduces risk normally. We want to look at what type of investment vehicles you own. Mutual funds are not the most tax efficient thing you can own. Not saying there's not tax efficient mutual funds, but when you buy a mutual fund, that fund might have bought Microsoft 20 years ago and sold it this year when you bought it. And you're going to be having a capital gain distribution where you're going to have to pay taxes on. And you didn't really get to appreciate in that share price growing all that time. So at some point on your taxable accounts, we might want to look at stock ownership over mutual funds, depending on what your goals are, your risk, and how much assets you are going to invest in that. So even the type of investments can also affect it, even though it's in that, let's say, a certain type of registration, but the type of investment itself can have a different tax consequence for you. Retirement planning, we do a lot of, we break down retirement planning in two phases. There's the accumulation, like a day like today, yesterday, when the market goes down, if you're young, putting money in your 401k, you should be happy. You're buying more shares of the same companies you would have bought 2 years ago when the market was really, really up, or last year. You're buying them discounted today. I mean, who wouldn't want to buy Microsoft on sale? Who wouldn't want to buy Home Depot on sale? I mean, that's what you're buying when the market goes down. Kind of stinks, though, when you're retired and you're taking the money out. You better have some safe money, in those buckets. Francis was talking about the boxes, for those distributions where you don't want it affected by the market. So retirement planning is really important on the accumulation. And then the distribution, I would say, is even more important, because if you make a mistake, Go to McDonald's in the morning. Look who's working. It's the senior citizens. You know, we used to joke. I mean, I've been in the business quite a while. We used to, when I first got in, there used to be a joke. You can hand 2 applications to your client. You can hand them the IRA application, start saving monthly, or you can hand them a McDonald's application, because that's where they're going to end up when they retire. And I know nobody ever wants to, I shouldn't say no one, but I got imagine that most people on this call, if you're listening, your goal is not to go work at McDonald's and work the register or put the salt on the fries. So I always say, you know, the next big thing, which I love the tax planning part of investments. I mean, I started working for an accounting firm. I do a lot of coaching and training with other financial advisors in the industry, what to look for on the tax return and what kind of planning you can do. And I work I know Francis and Audrey does too. They work very very closely with other accountants, usually accountant estate attorneys. We work very well. We collaborate well. So when we can tee up that accountant, because it's very hard for your accountant to do a tax projection and then bill you $800, when we can actually start that process, do the projections, and then you give it to your accountant and say, yeah, that makes sense. I agree with them. So having that done in your financial plan is usually a lot more cost effective, more, cheaper for you to save some money. And we might go a little bit more in depth because the accountant's just looking for the tax dollars at the current time. We might be projecting taxes out for the future. When you retire, taking advantage of some tax strategies, which I'll mention in a second. The last thing is estate planning. Nobody likes to talk about it. It's amazing if you Google how many people have not set up a will. Some people just don't want to do it. Some people are like, they think if I do my will now, there's a good chance I might die. I mean, I've heard so many different reasons why people don't do wills. You remember it was the Shriver in Florida. She didn't have her medical director, the living will. These are important documents. You don't want to leave those decisions to your children. I mean, watching a parent get old and pass away gradually is hard enough for them to have to make that decision for you. So some estate planning, and I gotta imagine that most people with proper estate planning would rather keep more money in their household, like their children and their spouses, than to give it to Uncle Sam. As a taxpayer, I love when you screw up with your estate planning and you pay more for taxes. It helps with our federal budget. But I don't think that's the smartest thing to do for you. I'm sure you don't want to do. That's not your goal. No one's saying, yeah, I want to pay more taxes. So do some estate planning. So I'm just going to go over some bullet points I wrote down. These are like common things I've seen over the last couple of months, things I've been working with clients. I just wanted to share those with you. Francis mentioned IRA versus Roth conversions, donations. They increased the standard deduction to double. Are you getting a tax deduction? The new 10-year rule, when you inherit money from a non-spouse taken out over 10 years, you have to liquidate it by the 10th year of the death of the person you inherited from. So there's some tax planning there. Otherwise, you're going to be bumping up into really high tax brackets. So there's ways to counter that now. There's something called a 0% long-term gain rate and qualified dividend. A lot of people don't know about this. If you're in a low tax bracket, maybe you're beginning college, right out of college, or you're going to have you retire, you're going to be living on some assets. You can sell some of your gains at 0%, which is unbelievable. And so many people don't know about that. Tax harvesting. I always talk about be careful about taking unnecessary gains. You might be phasing out some of your deductions like rental losses. You might increase how much of your Social Security is going to be taxed, or Medicare premiums could go up based upon how much you make. For those who are in low tax brackets, take advantage of that. Max out your bracket. If you could take money out of an IRA penalty free, do it. If you could do it at 12%, I would. Here's a little, for those who have kids, don't pay 100% usually out of the 529 plan for tuition. We just had a new client come in. He did that. All he had to do is take $4,000 out of pocket, not 529, to pay, and he got a $5,000 tax credit for education. And the last thing is make sure your beneficiaries are selected and you review them and they're updated, such when you have grandkids or God forbid someone passes away. Work reach out, call a financial advisor. Look, I'm in Princeton. I work on Zoom. Francis in Colorado. Audrey's in North Carolina, right? South Carolina, one of the Carolinas. Reach out to them. There's financial advisors all over the country. Most people will have a meeting for free for the first meeting for a conversation. Interview two of them. See who you like. You're going to be building that relationship with them. And last, I got to do a little plug. If you want to hear more from me, which I don't know if you do, I have a podcast you can find on most major podcast apps out there. All you have to do is search my name, Richard Oring. Podcast is called Financial Matters with Richard Oring. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Some really great information and insight there on different types of financial coaches and people on your team. So I'd love to bring Audrey and Francis back on screen to do some question and answer. Again, feel free to put your questions in the Q&A function. And we do have one already. So I will bring this up, and whoever wants to answer, please feel free to chime right in. So how do you all feel about cryptocurrency and investing in that now?
I can answer that as a compliance person with a Series 24. Cryptocurrencies aren't federally registered products, so we are only allowed to sell and recommend and talk about federally registered products. So cryptocurrencies currently are not allowed to be talked. If we're registered with FINRA, we are not allowed to talk about them. Sorry.
All right, we got another one. What are things to look for in a financial advisor?
You want me to take that, Lauren?
I was going to say, I'll take this if you want. And then Richard, you kind of tell me what you think too. I love the idea of exactly what he said earlier of basically interview them, see who you like. I had this on my notes earlier, but I love, Richard, that you said it. It's, for me, if you have a body, you need a doctor. If you have a bank account, you need a financial advisor or planner. So you need somebody that works with you, somebody that you like. Look for somebody you like. If you don't find someone, keep going.
Great idea. I love that.
I'm going to add one thing, because I mentioned pricing earlier. So there's something new in the industry called subscription-based financial planning, the Netflix of planning. Like where I live, a financial plan can cost anywhere between $2,000 to $10,000. And I don't like that business model. I really don't. I like making it. First off, I enjoy doing it. So you should do what you enjoy. So I like charging a monthly fee and making it more affordable for everyone, and pay what you need. Like if you don't have kids, you don't need education planning. If you're not, we'll do some questions heads on. You say, look, if I get sick, I don't care about long-term care. I'll note it. You're going to sign something. I presented it, but we don't have to plan for that. So again, it could be affordable for everyone. There's different things out there, and personalities, like Audrey, you said, like personality is a big thing. If you want someone who's going to show up in a suit and tie, I am not your guy. This is dressed up for me. I wear a suit once. That's the first meeting. Never again. So personalities and making sure that you can work with them, that conversation is important.
Wonderful. We got some great questions rolling in. Audrey, this is a quick question for you. So what was the name of the TED Talk that you recommended?
Absolutely. The name of it is Break Social Taboo About Money and Improve Financial Wellness. It is by Jason Vitug, V-I-T-U-G, and it's a TED Talk.
Wonderful. Thank you. Another question we have is, please expound on the TFRA in section 7702.
I think they're talking about VIVA plans, which like 419I plans or E plans, which is actually the reason why I got insurance licensed. And when I did, and I learned about them, I never sold one and stopped even thinking about it. I've never done, I think that's what they're talking about. I could be totally wrong. I think that's what they're talking about. You don't really, I mean, that was something really, really big, like in the early 2000s, probably. We don't really see them as often, if that's what they're talking about.
Sure. If you want to, whoever asked that question, if you want to expand on that in the chat, feel free to.
I could probably chime in on that. There was a very recent change with regards to Rule 7702. It basically tells you, or basically categorizes what is an investment vehicle versus what is an insurance vehicle. And that actually has been changed, as I mentioned, fairly recently. It's generally speaking, it's used for most often cash value accumulation within insurance, and all while avoiding an endowment. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what they're talking about, but that's what comes to mind with regard to section 7702.
Great, thank you. So this is the last question that we have time for, but Edward is asking that he has both a Roth IRA and traditional IRA. So can you please explain the tax complications at retirement for both?
What was, I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time, Lauren?
Sure. This person has both a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA, and they're asking, can you explain the tax complications at retirement for both?
I can take this one, or at least a portion of it. Tax complications, I'm not exactly sure what you might mean. I think having both is really a great tool and really gives you a lot of control. Based on the example relay that I gave on the during my presentation, you have a lot of maneuverability with regards to when you're taxed, right? So let's say there's a specific year that most often when you're just transitioning into retirement, let's say age 67-ish, could be later, could be sooner, you'll still have residual income from that previous year. So it might be prudent to use Roth funds during that transition, to kind of mitigate your tax bracket. Whereas later on, you could potentially tap into your traditional IRA, which you'd be taxed at your normal income. So
there's one more thing to add to that. One of the big difference between the two is a traditional IRA, remember, is ordinary income when it comes out, but they changed the rule, assuming that nobody was 70.5 pre-2019 on the call. At 72, there's something called a requirement distribution, an RMD, which you have to take out a certain amount from a traditional IRA, where you don't have to take it from the Roth. So there are numerous times I've seen clients who don't need to take out the RMDs, and sometimes their income could actually be higher than when they worked. Between pensions, 401ks, it's amazing. Like they come, you got to remember when you're working, you're putting away like this year, 20,000 to your 401k, has other deductions. You retire, there's no deductions. The only deduction you got is your tax bill. So having your traditional IRA, your 401k traditional could grow substantial, and it could cause a humongous tax liability if you don't plan for that when you hit 72.
Wonderful. Thank you all for answering the questions. I'm now going to introduce Lori Zabada, Director of Alumni Relations, to close us out.
Thanks, Lauren, and thank you so much to our alumni for such an inspiring and informative discussion. You all have tremendous knowledge in this content area, and we're grateful that you took the time to share it with your fellow alumni. I'd like to also thank you, Lauren, and the Alumni Relations team for their help behind the scenes in order to bring this program to us. Finally, thank you to all of the alumni in attendance tonight. As alums, JWU provides a truly unique and exceptional education that prepares our students for future success. If you'd like to pay it forward, please consider making a gift to whatever you're most passionate about at JWU. From scholarships and financial aid to student clubs and orgs, gifts of all sizes combine to have an impact on our students that is truly powerful. And as an alumni donor, you'll also contribute to the growth of JWU's reputation, which increases the value of your own degree. If you're in a position to give back, you can do so by clicking the link in the chat window. Thank you so much for your support. We sincerely hope that you enjoyed this evening's session, Refine Your Finances, part of the JWU for You family of programming. Through JWU for You, alumni can engage in informative and interesting discussions related to professional development, social, and avid interest topics. For the full listing of upcoming events, please visit our events calendar at alumni.jwu.edu. Thanks so much for your attendance, and I wish you a wonderful evening. Have a great night.